Hey, this is John from Alloy 211. Today's video is another steel penetration test video. We're going to be testing the Norinco 7.62 by 39 steel core, the legendary steel core Norinco ammunition, against the 7.62 by 39 124 grain Tula recent production ammunition. Now the reason why I wanted to do this, test this particular round, is because I have always heard rumors and myth and legend about the 7.62 by 39 Norinco yellow box being armor piercing ammunition because it had a steel core and it's banned from import and blah 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 blah. It is banned from import, and these ones do have a steel core, but in doing research for the video I found that not all of them do have a steel core, even if they're in a yellow box. Even if they possibly say steel core on the yellow box, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are steel cored ammunition. And the only way to tell for sure, I mean, you can check head stamps and that'll give you a good idea, because depending on what factory it was made in, they only made steel core, but depending on which factory it was made in, they made both lead and steel core, and it really is kind of hard to tell just from the head stamp as to what kind of bullet it might have. The only way to really tell is to actually pull the bullet, and from what I was reading, and well, after pulling the bullet I know, if it is a boat-tailed bullet opposed to like the Tula around here where it's just a flat bullet, then that indicates it's steel cored. Now I know that this is steel cored. Now I thought about cutting it in half, but I really didn't want to cut it in half, so I didn't. I did. Now if you look, you can see it's got some scratches that I've put on it. But what I did do was I took a file, see if I can get in the light, and the file is a lot harder than the steel that this is made out of. And even if I push fairly hard, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I mean, it will leave a light scratch. As you can see, it's left some really light scratches in it, but it's not, you cannot push the file into the material. I mean, it's hard, it is steel. So, I mean, and if you try to just put a magnet to it, the magnet sticks to the whole thing because it is a bimetal jacket. And that's another reason you have to pull the bullet, is because no matter what, a magnet will stick to this because it is a bimetal jacket. And so is the Tula round. A magnet will stick to the Tula round, but it is not. And I'll show you doing the same. Here's the back of the Tula round. Doing the same sort of test where I take a file and stick it in there like that. See if I can do this on camera. But when you do this, you can just, I mean, the file cuts deep. I mean, you can see that's a pretty deep cut. I mean, and you can literally just push the file down into it and it'll stick to it. That's obviously lead. Obviously lead. So, oh, it's stuck in there. So you really want to make sure that it is actually steel cored, because people charge a premium price for the steel cored Norinco ammunition. Now, one of the reasons why they do that is because of all the rumor and innuendo and myth behind this particular round being armor piercing because it has a steel core. But this is a mild steel core. It's in there for weight, not for armor penetration. So I really had my doubts about how much more penetrating power it would have than just a lead bullet. And so I wanted to test it against a variety of steel targets. And in this testing, we'll be setting the new standard by which I do my test. The two earlier tests that I've done with the 5.56 and the 7.62 by 54 were pretty much just into mild steel. And in this test, not only will we be testing against mild steel, we'll be testing against 1/4 inch AR400 steel and 3/8 AR400 steel to see how the steel reacts to the rounds at different ranges. The 1/4 inch will be at 150 feet and the 3/8 is at 185 feet. The mild steel we shoot at 100 feet. So I don't recommend really shooting, I never recommend shooting mild steel. Something I also need to say is do not try this at home. When you watch the shooting portion of this, you will see in some ways as to why you don't want to do this yourself. So nothing bad happened, there weren't any sort of accidents, but when you watch the bullets hitting the target, you can see a lot coming off the mild steel. So like I said, don't try it at home, but I've been doing this a long time. I shot steel for quite a long time, and so I'll do the testing so you don't have to. But like I said, this will be the new standard in testing because I really wanted to see at the different distances, you know, the 100 feet with the mild steel, 150 feet with the 1/4 inch AR400, and then the 185 feet with the 3/8 AR400. And the reason why I chose to use 1/4 inch and 3/8 is because there'll be a different reaction between the two materials just because of the thickness. Now, I could have also shot a 1/2 inch AR400 target, but the difference between the 3/8 and the 1/2 inch is insignificant. So I didn't see any reason to do that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys take a look at the shooting portion, and after that, and after we get reset up, we'll be back. Okay, we're back. The first target we're going to take a look at is the 1 inch mild steel target that was shot at 100 feet. And the first round we'll take a look at is the Tula 124 grain full metal jacket. The inside distance of the top of the splash, there, is 0.67 inches or 16.95 millimeters. The distance from there to there at plate depth is 0.592 inches or 15.04 millimeters. The depth from the bottom of the pit to the top of the splash is 0.34 inches or 8.66 millimeters. And the depth from the plate to the bottom of the pit is 0.14 inches or 3.54 millimeters. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Norinco. Now the Norinco overall inside at the top of the splash is 0.59 inches or 15 millimeters. At plate depth, it is 0.51 inches or 12.86 millimeters. And now the depth from the top of the splash to the bottom of the pit is 0.38 inches. But what's really interesting here is the depth from the plate to the bottom of the pit is 0.27 inches. It's 0.38 inches from the top of the splash or 9.75 millimeters. And from the plate, it is 0.27 inches or 6.85 millimeters. So it did penetrate significantly more into the plate than the Tula did. As you can see, the Tula expanded out quite a bit more, but it didn't penetrate as deeply. Whereas the Norinco didn't expand out nearly as far, but it did penetrate quite a bit more deeply than this did. And there are a couple other things that are interesting to look at with the way just the pits look. Now we'll go ahead and zoom in. Here. Zoom in here, maybe. Maybe. Okay. No, not quite. Almost. Maybe if I go really slow and sneak up on it. Oh, scared it. Oh, no. Oh. Oh. Okay. Well, that's good enough. Now, I'm going to kind of turn it to the side. You can see that's a really pretty shallow, and by the measurements you can tell it's pretty shallow. And just looking at it, it really kind of just looks like it dished out. I mean, it really looks like it was shot with lead. Now, if we move over to the Norinco over here, maybe bring that up or leave it there. There we go. You can actually see it seems to have kind of an inner area where it goes down in more deeply than the Tula did. And it doesn't splash out at the bottom like that. It really pretty much drives a much straighter hole down in. And maybe it doesn't come out on video quite as well. You can kind of see there where it almost looks like you can tell where the steel core impacted the plate. And with this, you can almost tell that it looks like the lead just kind of hit it and flowed out. But that is on mild steel. at 100 feet. Let's see what it did to a hard steel at 150 feet. Now this is 1/4 inch. See if I can not knock anything over while I do this. Oh, I did it. Okay. Now I'll probably knock something over when I flip it up on its side. Okay, this is 1/4 inch AR 400 steel. The AR stands for abrasive resistant. They use this in the mining industry and all kinds of different things, and it's a very hard steel. And that's what it's used for. I mean, it's like AR 500, which is also abrasive resistant, but it is not quite as hard as AR 500, but still very hard. And still hard enough you can use it to shoot at. Now, as you can see, both rounds really dented the material. And that's why I would never recommend using 1/4 inch hard steel for any sort of rifle, or really any sort of handgun that has high velocity, because it's going to dent, and eventually those dents are going to cause problems. I think I may have dumped something off the table, but maybe not. Now, it's kind of hard to see, but as you can see, it really dented the plate. So it's not so much that I can give you a good depth measurement from the edge of the plate, because it just really dented the plate. But I did try to take a little bit of a depth measurement. So on the Tula, we had a 0.15 inch depression, or 3.78 millimeters. And with the Norinco, we had a 0.17 inch depression, or 4.35 millimeters. So, you know, we did get a little bit more depth of a pit from the Norinco than the Tula on the hard steel. But really, even though this has a steel core, against a harder steel than what the core is made out of, it doesn't really do anything. As you can see, I mean, you can tell, move it here. As you can tell, there's a spot right there in the center that is impacted a little more deeply than on the Tula. But it is just, pardon me, it is a minuscule difference when you go to this harder steel. Now, this is quite a bit further bent, but it also is further on the edge of the piece of steel. So, you can't really tell, but it is got a nice bulge there. But as you can see, the Tula, is a little further in from the edge. I'm gonna have to check that out. I can't really tell for sure, and I had noticed this before, but that looks like it may have cracked it, which I would be interested to see if that actually did crack it. I'm gonna take a look at that and see if it did. I'll update you in another video. Anyway, like I said, at 150 feet against a 1/4 inch thick hard steel, they seem to perform about the same. Now, we'll take a look at the 3/8 AR 400 steel that was shot at 185 feet. Now, there is, see if I can get this somewhat, there is a very, very, very slight difference in depth between the two on the 3/8 AR 400 steel. But, I mean, pardon me, if I were going to give this a depth, I'd probably measure the Norinco at like 2 eyelashes and a hair, and I would call the Tula maybe 1 eyelash and a hair. So, I mean, the difference in depth, I mean, you can feel it with your finger kind of, but you can't actually, I couldn't measure it. I'm sure that you could measure it, but it is insignificant between the two. Set that down. I mean, like I said, I couldn't figure out a way to measure it, because it is it is just so slight. And you know, as something else that will be tested in the future, just so that I can kind of give people a baseline on this, I know that a 30-06 AP round will go through this plate. So an actual AP round will penetrate, well, will perforate this plate. And this Norinco with its steel core didn't even do, and barely did surface damage to it. So there, in no way is this ammunition armor piercing. So if anybody's trying to sell you Norinco steel cored ammunition as armor piercing, I really don't think it is. I mean, no more than any other regular Tula. Now granted, it is kind of cool that it's got a boat tail bullet, but honestly, when I was shooting it, the Tula was a lot more consistent in my gun. But the way AKs are, that could just be my gun. You know, I have read some people say that the Norinco is very accurate, and that's really why they want it. It's not because they want the steel core for any sort of other reason. But like I said, the rumor that I've always heard and have been, you know, interested to see is that it was like AP ammunition because of the steel core in it. But it's not. It's no more really penetrative than your regular lead core bullet. Now granted, if you're shooting at mild steel, it did definitely penetrate into the mild steel a lot more. But armor isn't mild steel. Armor is hard plate, and into hard plate it does nothing really different than a lead bullet. So now, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up. If you watched some of my other videos and you like those too, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Soon we'll be having another one of these tests coming up where I reevaluate the 5.56 rounds, doing the testing like this rather than just on the mild steel, because as you can see, there is quite a bit of difference between what these bullets did in mild steel compared to what they did on hard steel. So anyway, if you liked the video, again, give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.